Hello to you all. Thanks for joining us. It's another edition of the program Global Insight on For You Media Africa. Today we want to look at the problem affecting especially young and vibrant African population. We are focusing on youth exodus from Africa, asking the question if import substitution can be a remedy to this. Welcome to this thought-provoking program. It is a global insight. We are diving into an issue that is not only crucial for the development and well-being of African continent, but also has far-reaching implications on a global scale. With a panel of experts who will explore the complexities of youth migration and the potential of import substitution as a strategy to address the challenges at hand. It should be noted that this topic is coming at a time that African government have been advocating for the harnessing of human capital. So with the current crisis of immigration from across Africa, we begin to look at ways that African governments, together with other stakeholders, civil society, the right parameters that can be used to be able to solve this crisis. So I will introduce to you the panel for today. And with delight, I'm welcoming Dr. NGWANYAM, who is an entrepreneur and also a political analyst. Is here to give insight to this very important topic. Hello to you, Doctor. It's a pleasure having you on For You Media today.
Thank you very much. It's so nice to be in your studio for the first time.
Absolutely,
It's a
you're
very
welcome.
beautiful place. It's very lovely.
Thank you.
Congratulations for a job well done.
Thank you.
And good afternoon to the other Africans listening to us from wherever. And this is a very exciting topic, and I've been, working along these thoughts for a very long time. So I think we can delve into it. We can examine it. We can operate it. We can look at the intestines of the problem, and we try to correct the disease. So there's a lot to learn from here, and there's a lot of advice to be given, and there's just so much that African governments, parents, students, and everyone has to do. Everybody has something to do to be able to correct this problem. It's a huge problem. The question is, why are African children dying in the Mediterranean Sea?
Yeah.
Why are they dying in the Sahara? Why are they made slaves and are being killed in Tunisia, in Libya, in Morocco? Why are they being chased around in Europe? Why are they dying in Mexico and in the Atlantic Ocean? Why are they being chased around like if they were rabbits or something like that? There's something wrong. There's something wrong with the black man, and we must try to understand it and correct it.
Indeed, it is imperative to understand and correct, especially in a world that is taking a multipolar dimension. Let's meet the director of Center for Africa Development, Dr. Elijah ENOAKU, who is joining today from Canada. Hello to you, Doctor, and thanks for being part of the program this day.
Thank you for having me, Clarice. And this topic that we are talking today, it's a topic that brings painful memories. It's a topic that brings hard feelings. It's a topic that brings tears to the eyes of every concerned African. It's a topic that I would say in one way or the other has dehumanized us, and it has rendered us to be the laughingstock of the world. Hopefully, as we discuss this, the powers that be that need to enable an environment that young people can strive, can bring out their potential, young people can exercise their freedom to exercise whatever they want to exercise, they can listen to us. As we are discussing, I came across a report that said in the next 10 to 15 years, some countries in Africa will have the put it in quote, productive section of the economy, of their population residing in Canada, United States, and in Europe. More than 70% of their productive population will be residing out of the country. When you go through such statistics, it's a dire note that we are losing our heritage, we are losing our hegemony, we are losing who we are because of some of the things that we're going to be discussing here. So thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure, and of course, I should thank you for your time to give insight on this very important topic. I will write off with you. Dr. Nick, we are looking at youth exodus from Africa. It's a phenomenon that the global world is talking about today. So let's understand. We already know what this youth exodus is all about. So the question is, how would you characterize the current trends of youth migration from Africa, and what are the primary driving factors behind this phenomenon, which is really alarming?
Thank you very much. When you really want to understand any situation, you ask the questions what,
Absolutely.
why, and how. And when we understand the why, then we'll know how to go ahead and correct. And when we don't ask these questions and understand what is driving the things we are seeing, then we'll not be able to solve the problem. Before we get lost in too many details, let me lay a solid foundation again, and you could forget anything that I'm going to say, but if you can remember this foundation, you can always walk your way through the problem and understand it and know what the solutions are. You will remember a couple of months back, you and we talked about our fan blades, right? You remember those fan blades? And for those of you who probably don't know what we are talking about, we try to understand the complexity, the complexity of systems, and especially human systems, and we are using a fan which has 3 blades to be able to, an electric fan which has 3 blades to be able to understand how things work. And we said that on one of the blades of the fans, we are going to write the word politics. On the second blade, we are going to write the word economics. And on the third blade, we'll write the word development. And you know that a fan is connected to electricity, and then there is a knob through which we regulate the power that drives the fans. And so you have power setting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Now that's the setup. And when we talk about politics, we are talking of 2 things. And each of those things, be it politics, economics, or development, has a part A and a part B to it. What is politics? The word politics looks very complicated, and a lot of people would interpret it to you. I mean, would try to describe it to you in very complex ways, but it's very simple. Politics, part A. What is it in part A? You and I are in. I mean, when you are in a house with your husband or with your children, or you are in a school or in a community or a nation, you always agree on the things that you should do and the things that you should not do. Those are policies, okay? Sure. Those are the rules that govern a system. We are in a television house here, and in as much as there are many television houses in Douala or Cameroon, each television house has got its do and don'ts. That is the politics of the house, okay? Indeed. And that's what drives every system. There is no way you can make anything work without politics. What should we do and what should we not do, okay? And what is the part B? The part B is, once you have agreed on what you should do and or not do, there must be a disciplinary mechanism to make sure that those rules are followed. What is economics? Part A. Economics is, how do we earn money? How do we create wealth? How do we earn money? That's it?
Sure.
Part B. How do we spend it?
Spend the money.
That's all. That's what economics is all about. How do you earn money and how do you spend it? Mm-hmm. And in place of money, to be more exact, how do you create wealth? because wealth is more than money. Okay.
Sure.
Now then, part C is development.
Development, yeah.
What is development? When we say development, what is development? Two parts. Part A, physical development, physical structures. This television station is new, so then everything is just new. It looks great, and so we are talking about the physical space. It includes electricity. In a country, when you're talking about development in a country, what are you looking at? You're looking at the electricity, the roads,
infrastructure,
the infrastructure, everything,
Sure.
internet. Think about anything. The shipping lines, the airlines, I don't know what, the cars, the beautiful roads, the flower beds, all of that is physical development.
Yeah.
Then there is the part B of that, which is the most important thing in creation, is the human being. That is, we are talking of human capacity development. You see that?
Absolutely.
And
Which
so-
is, yeah.
So it is the human being that makes the politics work, the economics work, and then those physical things. So if something is not working in our environment, then there's a lack of human capacity. Are you getting that?
Absolutely.
And so once we have understood that element of human capacity, we will trace the problem of Africans to the lack of human capacity. And then the question is, what happened to the human capacity? What happened to it? So where does human capacity come from that we don't have? And you remember the electricity? That electricity of things, the internet of things, the electricity that makes the fan to turn is called sound education.
Sure.
So yes, we have education in Africa, but it's the wrong type of education. That is where our problems are, and that is what we are going to be talking about. We can talk from morning till evening. We will point our hands, our energy, and everything to the education, and the time has come for us to correct that education. So if you ask me, if somebody woke you from sleep and asked you why are our roads dirty, just tell them the education is bad. Why don't we have water? Say education is bad. Why is there violence and so on? Just put it on education and you'll be right. You can never go wrong on that. So we'll be looking at the kind of education we need to get us out of this mess.
Indeed, the kind of education that is imperative to drive the development or the transformation that we have in Africa. Let's continue the perspective with you, Dr. ENOAKU. We are talking today about youth exodus from Africa, and President Paul Kagame of Rwanda, and even the President of the Republic of Cameroon, Paul Kagame, highlighted this important aspect, and he actually bemoaned the fact that the vibrant young people are leaving the African continent, are leaving Cameroon in search for greener pastures out there. But the underlining question that we want to understand at this particular moment is, why are the youth leaving, and why is the exodus so alarming in the 21st century? The reason for this program is to see how together with Africa that is striving towards defining its voice at the global stage, to see how they can actually bring forth some of the continental problems we have. This is human capital we are talking about. So in your perspectives, what actually are those driving forces behind this youth exodus from Africa, and what can be done to correct that in order to build the human capacity, like Dr. Nick Ngwanyam highlighted already in his preamble?
Clarice, thanks for giving me the microphone. As I said at the interlude from the beginning, that this is a topic that comes to me with a heavy heart, because I deal with these papers every day, and I deal with these subjects every day, and it's something that is so heavy to my heart. My colleague in the studio has enumerated a couple of things, but I want to add by saying that these things affect the African continent to various degrees,
Absolutely.
because the number one problem that we are having in Africa, it's the poor management of the private sector. We have a curriculum, not just a curriculum, we have economies that are so heavily dependent on the civil sector. And you and I know how corrupt, how evil, how abysmal, how wicked the civil sector is in Africa. And when you find a sector that is ruled by nepotism, tribalism, and favoritism, that is a sector that is being propelled ahead at the detriment of the private sector. That is the engine of every modern economy and democracy. And the private sector is almost non-existent. Whether you're in Cameroon, or in Nigeria, in Central Africa, or whatever country, look at what they call the private sector. It's almost non-existent. So when you find these kind of economies and find these kind of economic principles or policies, let me put it that way, what are you going to find? You're going to find that a sector that is supposed to cater for innovation, technology, engineering, science, healthcare, and all whatnot, that is a sector that is not being prioritized. But the one that is supposed to just be there to enable the environment for the private sector to prosper, that is the one that is being prioritized. In every country in Africa, maybe with the exception of one or two, maybe South Africa or one of the countries, a young man that is coming out of university, his dream is that he wants to work in the civil service. That's his dream. He wants to get a government with a job, with a job with the government. He wants to work for the government. He wants to work in the civil service. There is no innovation. The private sector, as I said from the beginning, is non-existent. Number two, we ask the question, why are young people, why is this exodus? Why are they looking outside? If you do not, my colleague in the studio talked about a lack of human capacity. I would disagree with that a little bit, because if you look at the youths that are coming out here from Africa, and when they come out here, you see the rate at which they excel. We are not just talking about, it doesn't matter. You could pick any area. I know that the educational system in Africa needs to be revamped. The curriculum in Africa needs to be revamped to tailor to the modern day needs. But the question is, why is it that the youths with, let's just pick one anything, history, geography, French, literature, whatsoever subject it is, that has excelled in Africa educational-wise and is not able to make ends meet when he or she graduates from university, when he or she finds himself in the Western world, he begins to excel. But that youth could not excel in Africa with that background, and we blame it on the educational sector because he or she got a job that did not fit into the system. Yes, there's part of that, but I'm saying we need to dig deeper. It is not just the curriculum and the issues that we have found wrong with our education. The enabling environment is 80 to 90% the cause of the problems that we find. The environment does not enable entrepreneurship. The environment does not enable young people. There is corruption. There is nepotism. There's all kinds of things that drag down the economy. That is why young people are looking outside. Because when they see outside and they feel that they can, with the background that they have, still succeed elsewhere, they cannot succeed in those countries, they are tempted to leave. An example, you mentioned President Paul Biya of Cameroon with his speech yesterday or a few days ago. Yeah. When he made that speech, ironically, the success story that he speak was Francis Ngannou. And we know that Francis Ngannou is an epitome of what we are talking about and how he left the country before he became successful. Why couldn't he succeed in Cameroon? He took that route, dangerous route of Tunisia or whatnot, and finally he's a success story that the president of the country is using as an example, which is very contradictory. That's to tell you that these young people are living in an environment that is not enabling them to excel. It is not because they do not have the capacity or they are poorly trained. Yes, the issue of being poorly trained, not for the job market, is there, but that is not a primordial issue that we have in Africa. The primordial issue is the private sector has been decimated. It has not been encouraged. If you even try anything in the private sector, they'll bring the iron axe of taxes upon you. Okay. They will bring all kinds of issues on you. Have you tried to start even a business in some African countries and see how long? I mean, we have made this investigation that it takes close to 6 months for you to go through the documentation of starting a business. Meanwhile, you leave the next country and you jump here in the Western world. It takes 2 weeks or even a week for you to file your document and start something. So again, the environment in which these young people find themselves is not enabling for them to excel. It's not enabling them to aspire. It's not enabling them to bring out the best in them. That is why they feel that it has to be out here. They see their friends who leave the country, like the Ngannou that he talked about. He was able to make it out here, and so on and so forth. Therefore, that is the number one problem that we are facing in Africa.
I will come back to you subsequently, Dr. Elijah. Let me continue with you, Dr. Nick. While talking, I was actually thinking about something like, it's been on the debate table for some years now, human capital development.
Yeah.
And of course, he has highlighted people don't excel here, but out of the country they excel. So, is it the governance lapses, or are the existing systems not favorable enough with the changing times that will actually favor the proper intersection of these young people, especially in the economic life of their various countries?
Oh, thank you very much. I was listening to Dr. Elijah.
Dr. Elijah, yeah.
Elijah, very keenly, and then he talked about the environment.
Yeah,
And we need to see what exactly is in that environment that is not working.
absolutely.
And when we would understand a lot of the issues, we will still come back to agree that the problem is the education. Now, there is no question that when children leave this country and then go like to Canada or wherever, they succeed, they make it. But they don't make it in literature. That's not where they make it. They don't make it in history.
Yeah.
They don't make it in geography. It's that those countries, there is the countries are kind of like developed. You understand? So there are opportunities, and you can always fit into something that would feed you. It's about that environment which has developed as a whole,
Yeah.
and is able to take you in, and there will always be somewhere where you can fit. Whether you are selling in a McDonald's or you are doing something and so on. That's the thing. It's not about going to Canada and having a PhD in literature. That's not it. It is not that literature that fits you there. It's not the literature. It is that when you go into that environment, whether you study geography or what, the environment allows you, to take up some 6 months courses in something specific, that is job related, and you do it, and you pick up the skills to be able to render that service, and it goes. Even if it means selling in a restaurant,
Yeah.
you need to train. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
And you do it right. So it's about skill set. And then when you go out there are so many opportunities. But here, like he was saying, the private sector is dead. And then if people who
And how can we revive that private sector?
let's
Yeah.
because that's where the key that's the
Absolutely,
key.
yeah.
You see, for us to understand the private sector, let us go and read the book. And I'm recommending there are four. The 4 books I always recommend for people to read, right? There's some 4 books that I'm going to recommend. Check them out on Google. Check on YouTube. You can listen to the 7 minutes explanation of these books.
Yeah.
Once you have to get the basis. When you get this basis, they will help you to understand a lot of the things that are happening and what I'm saying. There are 4 ways in which you can earn money genuinely, and then there's a 5th, which is theft. Now, you can earn money, and everybody has, except you are lazy and you're not earning money, and then someone else is feeding you. But otherwise, if you're going to earn a penny, you do so genuinely in one of 4 ways.
Yeah.
Number 1, you are an employee. Okay, like
Sure.
Clarice, you are employed here, so you earn a salary. All right.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah.
number 2, you are self-employed. Like, let's say if you had come up with your restaurant,
Yeah.
and then you're cooking this nice food, and we are all coming there and eating, you will earn your money, a living.
Absolutely.
And number
yeah.
3, you create a business, like what Doctor was talking about. You create a business when you are employing about 50 or 100 or more people.
Creating employment.
Yes, creating employment.
Yeah.
You create a system. I will explain that in a moment. Then number 4, you are an investor. And when we are talking about investors, you know Alaji Baba Dangpolo, right?
Absolutely.
He's an investor.
Sure.
You know
sure.
you know Dangote, right? I mean, he is an investor. I mean, those are the big guys, the big boys. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, so it's kind of a scale, and then you can drop that from there. But an investor is someone who creates 1,001 businesses, and they're employing so many people that you can't even count.
Yeah.
Now, let's come back again between self-employment and business. You see, if you have your restaurant and you are running it, or let's say I have my small clinic as a medical doctor and I'm running it, or a lawyer in his small law practice, he only makes money when he's physically present and puts in the hours and what it takes, with his customers. Then he will make money. When he goes to sleep, the machine stops. Is it making some sense there?
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
in a business, you create a system that makes money even when you, the owner or the creator, is away. It's a machine, it's a money-making machine that keeps turning and minting money while you are sleeping or while you're on holidays. So you create a system that renders that generates products and services. You make it efficient so that even when you pull out, the thing is turning. And it's time for me to explain. When we are talking about different businesses, you can talk of a businessman, and you can also talk of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is slightly different from a businessman. A businessman is just someone who is just interested in making money and making all the profits. But an entrepreneur is someone who actually looks at this at his environment, picks up on a problem, and then creates a solution to that problem, a solution that would help the environment to grow. Let me give you an example. You see, we don't have rice in Cameroon, but you have these big. Yes, I mean, you understand what I mean.
Absolutely,
but you have these big importers of rice who are business people, big businesses. All they do is take money from the central bank, the dollars, go to China or to Thailand or wherever, or India, and bring in shiploads of rice and feed the people. And then to an ordinary man, when you look at that, you think they're doing a good job. No, they're not helping the nation at all. They're killing the nation. But it's a businessman. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But how does an entrepreneur look at that? An entrepreneur can still solve that problem, but in a way that is profitable to the nation. All right? He looks at it.
Using the local resources.
Yes. So the two of them are solving the same problem. But the businessman is only interested in his money so on. Yeah, he creates a giant thing. Sure. When he's sleeping, he's making him money, and you think it's good. No, it's not good. He's killing the nation. And we have business people in Cameroon, in Africa, that are killing Africa. But we need to have more of entrepreneurs. So you use the resources at your disposal, and you create local solutions. And this would be answering to your question of import substitution.
Absolutely.
Are you getting what I'm saying? The business people are importing and are killing. So importation is killing. Business
economy.
Yes, business people just look for money in one way or the other, and they don't care about the local economy. While the entrepreneur tries to use his local resources and everything and builds the system that solves the problem, so that he produces the products locally and then exports. He produces the products and exports, while the other man imports. Are you seeing that difference?
Absolutely,
that is the key. And to be able to do that, that's where STEM education comes in. That's when industrialization comes in. That's where machines come in, and so on. That is the trick, and that's where the education fits. If you look at our school system, 80% of the students are studying the art subjects. They are not tuned into industry, but the secret is industry.
It's industry, of course.
So when we are talking about that capacity, maybe we should specify it. Is when we are talking about human capacity, it's not about salesmanship. Because the problem is, look at the schools again. We have a lot of people doing MBA, sales, and so on. But the bottom line is, what are they selling? What is the product? They don't have product. We are selling Chinese products. Yes, you all go and have doctorate in the MBA or whatever, and you come and you are selling Chinese products.
Another challenge, of course, that pundits have been advocating regarding the intra-Africa trade, like
Yes.
what do we have
Yes,
to
to
trade?
sell.
Cameroon has
Yeah.
this product.
Yes.
What does
So that
Gabon
is the
has?
key.
Of course.
Even if I leave this place without saying anything else,
Yeah.
have you understood the difference between a businessman? The businessman
And an
in
entrepreneur.
our African context is killing the nation, but we need to have business people with an entrepreneurial spirit who create the solutions internally, and they have difficulties creating those problems because we lack industries. To have industries,
And
we
the
have
political will, I think.
now, President Paul Biya has the political will, so political will is not the issue in Cameroon now.
Oh, okay.
Because, now we have all agreed that it's import substitution.
Yeah.
And how do we do it? We must retrain our youth, because 80% of them have been studying literature, philosophy, all those. That is not what runs industries. Though they can go out there into Europe, they are picking the bags and putting. They are not creating the machines. They are not. Are you getting me? They don't develop any of
That's
those
where
products.
we need to make that difference.
Yes. So it's about training our children to be productive.
Okay.
You see, our children cannot compete with South Korean children. No way.
And that's where the problematic lies, Dr. Nick. Let's continue with Dr. Elijah, because I said primarily that the reason why we're here is to see how we can bring that change, especially like the world is taking another dimension. Dr. Elijah, listening keenly to Dr. Nika, actually analyzing the effect or aspect that will actually wind down to the import substitution being a solution to the youth exodus from Cameroon. So the question I was about asking was like, what are the key challenges that actually hinders Africa's transition from, because when we talk import substitution, we're talking looking at how Africa can become a producer rather than a supplier of raw materials or importer of finished goods, which are actually manufactured using the raw materials that have actually been exported from Africa. So in your own perspective, with all that has already been said, what do you think is hindering this transition? Because we see, like Dr. said and others, some governments in Africa have been showing a strong political will to see that they can revamp the economic lives of their nations.
Before I answer your question, let me take you back a little bit to what something that you and Dr. Lee were discussing.
Okay.
Which I want to make sure that we are clear on what we are discussing here about what is the cause of this exodus of young people from Africa, Cameroon, and rest. Because I know you guys have been discussing about the kind of education and whatnot. But let's be concrete here, because we are talking about these things that cause these issues at varying degrees. What is the primary cause? Yes, we know that the educational system is a problem. There's deficiency in the educational system. We know that the disconnection between the training institution and the job market, we know that. We know that there's low growth and slow increase in employment. We know that. We know that the decentralization services are not good enough. We know that there's lack of inclusion and all whatever. We know that. But what is the major issue? What is the major issue that is causing this problem?
Because it
let's take two case studies.
Yeah?
Let's take two case studies, because when we are talking, there are case studies that we can use as an example. Mm-hmm. If you look at Rwanda industrialized and liberalized the economy about 1994, give or take. Cameroon did the same close to 1992, 93, 94. Now, compare these two economies, right? Compare these two economies. On every single economic metric that you can measure in terms of economic competitiveness, Cameroon is nowhere to be found compared to Rwanda. Cameroon has produced tons of engineers. When we talk about liberalizing the economy and making sure that we have people that are fit for the market, Cameroon has produced tons of nurses. Dr. Nick knows better than I do in these cases. It's produced tons of doctors. It produced tons of... Where are those doctors? Where are they working? Cameroon has produced tons of agricultural technicians. Where are those agricultural technicians? Where is the job market for them? So let us not be hitting the wrong target here and saying that the most important issue is that is wrong education and so on. No, that is not where the issue is. The issue is the environment, the economy. For example, we talked about, I mean, you guys discussed in the studio about, what the entrepreneur does and what the businessman does. What does it take for somebody to walk to the bank and ask for a loan? Because if you see the capital market is what is going to sustain the private sector, for example. You need a loan. Nobody gets up tomorrow and have millions in his pocket. But you need a loan. The sector needs to provide you with a capital for you to start. How many engineers, how many doctors can walk to the bank and get a loan to start a clinic tomorrow? How many nurses can walk to the bank and get a loan to start a nursing clinic tomorrow in Cameroon or in Africa? So we are talking about the enabling environment. That is the number one problem that's causing these young people to move. When I gave the example of literature and so on, I was letting you know that the problem, the capital problem that we are facing in Africa, it's not the educational system. That did cause a problem, but the African economy are liberalizing and they're going the way that, in terms of the jobs and so on. But we still find endemic systemic problem in Africa that despite that liberalization, despite the fact that all these young people are going into those sectors, technology, engineering, science, and so on, they still come out of the university and they're roaming the streets.
Yeah.
In your country, in Cameroon, where you are, haven't you met engineers that are doing odd jobs, riding bikes, nurses that are out there just roaming the streets, selling in the market? Have you met people with technical know-how? I have a lot of them. I do a lot of this research and I see them on my door every day. So let us not be beating about the bush about what the problem is. The economic systems in those countries that are not developing, the environment is not enabling these young people. Now you go to Rwanda. How many universities are in Rwanda as we speak? How many of them? Because this is a country that went through war.
Indeed, yeah.
The government of Kagame makes sure that the environment in which those children now that are studying and doing all those things is enabling them. As we speak, there are Africans that are going to Rwanda from these countries, Cameroon, Nigeria, and the rest, because they feel that they can make it there. The environment, the enabling environment is there for them to make it, and not in these other countries. So again, it is not. The capital problem is not the educational system. It has its problem and its challenges, and it's being addressed. It's not the deficiency in the educational system. It's not the entrepreneurship or lack thereof. No, it is the environment, the economic environment, the private sector that is non-existent that is causing this problem. Now, to answer your second question, because you did ask,
we're talking about import substitution, of course, looking at how
import substitution.
Yeah, we can move from exporter of raw materials to actually producers of goods in Africa.
Yes, that's a very good question. And the two, the case studies that I just mentioned here give us a cardinal example. Paul Kagame, for example, at the African Union, made a statement which was brought over by a lot of others, even though they are just singing songs without any implementation. He said there should be no raw material that leaves Africa as a non-finished product. That should be a policy that Africa should hold on to. And import substitution simply says we protect our local economies so that we don't have this international dump that comes over there, dump in our country and decimate in our own local economies, and thereby making them not competitive. You're going to do that in different ways. You can do quotas, you can do that in different ways, you can protect the economy, there are many things that they can do. But again, why would we talk about import substitution when the sector itself is non-existent? Where are the industries that you want to protect? What are they? Dog rice? Because everything we talk about in Cameroon, somebody's going to mention dog rice. Tell me, which industry in Cameroon has gotten to a level where the government needs to even protect? Is it the financial sector? Non-existent. We talk about the stock exchange market. Where is it in Cameroon? It doesn't exist. We talk about the financial sector. What is it in Cameroon? It doesn't exist. Talk about technology. For example, we heard about the in Boya that was coming up. We heard about Isimi, like the Silicon Valley kind of thing that was happening in Boya. Even as we speak today, because of the war and all whatnot, that sector was completely decimated. So, gentlemen and lady, let us nail the problem where it belongs. There are no industries to protect. They are non-existent. Because when you talk about import substitution, you're talking about a budding economy with a lot of industries that are coming up and they're competing with a dump that is coming from overseas, but we do not have. So what are we protecting?
Of course, the problematic at this that is where the bond of contention is. What are we protecting, Doc? You wanted to react
Yes,
to the point advocated by
in fact,
Dr. Aleja Enoku.
we are
before I
saying
actually
exactly the
proceed.
same thing. It's just that we don't seem to agree. But at the end of the day, I could have asked him a short question if it was we are sitting across the table, because the question I would have asked Dr. Ezekiel is he has acknowledged the fact that he has acknowledged the fact that there are no industries, they are inexistent. Okay, and that's the bottom line. The question is, how do you get the industries then? Who is going to run them? Who brings in the industries? So once you answer that question, then you would have solved the whole thing. And when you agree that the industries are absent, then eventually you will realize that the human capacity, the people you are training in your universities, they didn't have what it takes to run industries. That is the bottom line. And then to make it clearer, you made mention of the fact that yes, you have noticed a lot of engineers that have been trained and people trained in the sciences who are roaming the streets and doing menial jobs and not doing the proper things and not running the industries that you would have expected. That's correct. And to be able to understand that, you have to read the book. There is the books written by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He has written another book. There's the other book, Why A students work for C students and B students work for the government. If you read that book and you understand what he's saying, then you will understand why Africa has all these problems. So you can have all your engineers, which are the A students, but there's something that is not, there is some kind of an ingredient, some salt, some Maggi or something that is lacking from that engineer to be able to do what he's supposed to do. In the business world is a creative world. So if you have not grown with the spirit of creativity, with the spirit of taking risk, how to, it says how to, that is around businesses and industries. That how to. So you have to learn the engineering, and then you learn the how to. If you don't learn the how to, you can have 20 PhDs in engineering, you will still fail in the private sector. The private sector is a sector that you need to teach yourself how to. That how to is what we don't have. So you would see a lot of the professors in the sciences and so on, they want to go and work for the civil service because you just sit in an office or you go and deliver lectures and get a salary. But the question is, how does that professor come out there to put up a road construction engineer?
Yeah.
A road construction company, to create a company that would make all the air conditioners that we need. That is a different thing altogether. And before you take the microphone, there's something that I want to mention which we need also to correct in our educational system.
Yeah.
And if you to be able to see it, you need to look at how children are trained in Finland and the way we train ours. It's the spirit of the way we train in African countries is we compete. From nursery school, the children start fighting against each other. I was number one. Are you getting this number one, number two thing? That kind of spirit.
Trying to understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, what position were you in class? I'm number one, number two. Children, that's not the best way of learning. Children should be taught to cooperate, What does that mean? Work in teams. Because in real life, to be able to create an industry, to do anything, you cannot do it alone.
Absolutely.
You work in teams, needing different persons with different specialties, working in teams. Where Prof is, he can bail you out. All I keep talking as if he was sitting on the.
Absolutely, yeah.
All those companies are run by teams of people, not one person. You remember I was talking about the self-employed thing? Yes, even in the self-employed, you still need one or two people who are running, but you are
Indeed,
self-employed. But when we are talking of businesses, you are talking about bringing a lot of people under one roof to work with a particular vision and produce a particular product and sell it. You understand? But when you have trained, where you are reading your books and then you are hiding, you don't want the other person to know what you are doing and so on. It doesn't work. Like when you have become an adult, you cannot cooperate. But when you go to Finland and other big universities who have understood, children are put together to work together on projects, because while we are solving a problem, there are aspects of it that I understand better than you. There are aspects of it that you understand better than me. And working in teams, we can, like they say, many hands make work lighter.
Absolutely.
That is the way children are trained out there. But the way we train us here are not good. And another thing, he was talking about, just to explain again, why doctors and engineers and many people fail in Africa and not out there.
Yeah.
The training of engineers out there now is different. So you go in your major, you want to train in mechanical engineering or civil engineering or whatever, and you take a minor in, let's say, business management, leadership, entrepreneurship. Are you seeing those things? So that, yes, you are a very sound engineer, but this is those soft skills that are necessary to make you succeed. So if you just read your physics and then you are the best in physics and you lack soft skills, you are going nowhere.
Thank you for that, of course. Dr. Elijah, let's understand from what you have advocated, and of course what Dr. Nick has also advocated regarding our topic for discussion this day. I will be bringing us to this particular juncture where we want to look at the exchange of expertise. We're talking about import substitution. You highlighted that Africa lacks the scope. The scope is not actually good enough or healthy enough for the African continent, because we don't have industries per se. And I quite remember it was yesterday that the leadership of Rwanda, which you cited quite in your analysis, he was answering to a question and said it's time for Africa to drive its own industrialization. You will not wait for the external world to come and do that for you. Use the resources, the know-how that you have to drive this industrialization. But like Doc said, you cannot work alone. I want us now to come to Africa's relation with international partners, bilateral relations. We know lately the continent has been very attractive to a whole lot of countries, and we have witnessed the summits that are holding across Africa. Now, my question is, we have industrialized nations among, you can cite Russia, you can cite others that are coming to actually cooperate with Africa. Now that we have understood and discovered this lack of industrialization or companies, and maybe the dormant nature of the private sector per se in Africa, what can Africa do, the stakeholders, be it political and economic stakeholders, to ensure that the bilateral or multilateral engagement with other already developed countries can be a boost to solving this Africa's problem of import substitution in present day society?
I'm going to give you a very concrete example because I don't like theory. An industrial engineer by training, Dr. Nick was talking about Scandinavia. That's where I did my postgraduate education before traveling here. So I'm very familiar with what he was talking about. But let me give you concrete examples. Because when we talk, it's not just theory. We give example to let people understand what's available out there.
Yeah.
You just cited Rwanda, and I want to use that so that we are on the same page. Rwanda does not have the number of universities that Cameroon has. Rwanda does not have the number of vocational institutions that Cameroon has. They just came out of genocide. in 1994, and they're still trying to build. But as we speak, every vocational institution, if you are in mechanical engineering, there is already an industrial complex where these students are studying and practicing. You don't have that in Cameroon. I have engineers, spoke to a couple of them a couple of days ago. They finished their engineering degree without even knowing what a spark looks like. Number two, we are talking about medical doctors and nurses. We are talking about people who graduate from hospitals and institutions. And well, maybe the case of doctors is a little bit different because we have hospitals, but mention every sector in Cameroon, for example, or some other countries. You have people who finish without any exposure to what they are expected to do. So the expectation issue is there. Number three, I want to bring you to the issue of Rwanda that you mentioned as well. In Rwanda, as we speak, this is not a country that has oil and gas and all the things that some other countries in Central Africa and West Africa have. They don't have that. But what have they done? They have made sure that the limited resources that they have, as we speak, there is an American and British enterprise that's gone into the country. They want to exploit gas from the lake. What are they doing? Rwanda has Kagame has instituted a rule that all the gas that's exported from there, that's going to be exported from those lakes, is going to be processed. It's going to be
transformed.
The whole process from extraction to production to sale will be done by Rwandans and Africans. It can be sold anywhere else. It can be sold in Europe. That's number two. That's to tell you that if we have African industries and resources that are developed on Africa, being developed on African soil, that is already the industry there. But what do we see in Africa, for example? Let's take Cameroon. Timber is being produced in Cameroon. Where is that timber being produced? We have timber from the south of Cameroon, South Province. We have timber from the southwest and somewhere else. But there is no sawmill, for example, anywhere in Cameroon. There used to be one somewhere in Niger, back when we were going to school, but it all shut down. Right from the peeling of the wood to the cutting and the processing and pulp and everything that comes out, it's being done in France and Belgium and all these other countries. So the raw resources are extracted from this country, they are processed in the Western world and brought back to Africa are almost 10 to 15 times the cost of that material. How are you going to protect an industry where you do not have the resources to produce that? Now, recently, we heard about the government of Cameroon that came out with a contract to produce iron ore in, I think, somewhere in the South Province, where it could be something like that. And the question that I asked some of them, because I communicate with some of these people, I said, what is the strategy to make sure that this iron ore extraction from, because that's my area, from extraction to processing to the coke oven to the blast furnace to casting to hot strip mill and all the process that it goes through. Where is the mechanism? Where is the plan put in place that we can do all that in Cameroon before this iron ore is being shipped to China? None. You're going to remove all the iron ore from the ground, put on barges and on ships, ship to China, produce iron, and sell it at almost 50 times the cost of the iron ore. That is what is killing Africa. So when you talk of import substitution, that's why I asked right from the beginning and said, where are the industries that you're going to protect? They do not exist.
Indeed.
We have the raw resource, raw materials. We have everything that it takes to make a vibrant sector in every area. That's why these people are coming to the West here and they're saying, oh, when they come here, where do they work, Harish? When the engineers come here, I have engineers. I have a friend of mine that came here. He got a job directly. He was trained in Cameroon. He didn't have to go to school again. He was trained in Cameroon, but there was no area for him to practice engineering in Cameroon. I have nurses that have come here. They immediately get jobs in the hospital, but they couldn't work in Cameroon because there were no environment for them to exercise what they were doing. So what I am saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that we should make sure that we are hammering the nail and not beating about the bush. Yes, we do recognize that the educational system is a problem. Yes, we do recognize that our people are not trained properly. But that is not the capital issue that we face in Africa, Cameroon, Nigeria, whatnot. The problem is that the economy, the sector that is supposed to absorb these people has not been developed. And who is supposed to make that enabling environment? It is not, yes, you and I we could do it, but it is the government policies. It is the investment. It is the attraction of foreign direct investment. It's the attraction of those industries. It's the attraction. The government cannot do it alone. But when you have a hostile environment where anybody that wants to come to the country to invest, first of all, does feasibility studies and say, hey, this is not an environment for us to invest because the return on investment is going to be poor, there's going to be taxes, there's war, there is this, there is that, and they all run away. So the government alone cannot do it. But the government must provide an enabling environment for that sector. Otherwise, we will talk about import substitution and all these things, and it will all be a slogan, and nothing will happen.
Let me stay with you, Dr. Elijah. You've underlined the actors that need to drive this industrialization in Africa. Now, we want to look, I asked a question which I think you've not answered fully. We're in the era of multilateralism. I want us to understand how this can be beneficial to the continent Africa in line with actually bringing forth industry or industrialization across the continent.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I forgot that part of it. And again, I like to use case studies because we are not dealing abstract here. Rwanda, for example, that my colleague in the studio mentioned, and you also mentioned, is a case study. This country, when they were in war, they had nothing. They knew nothing. You're talking about stark illiterates, uneducated. But what did they do? These guys strategically went into bilateral agreements with a lot of European countries. And he was doing it on the basis of training his people and then, opening the economy, opening the industry for a lot of international organizations to come in. Again, when we talk about bilateral agreements, it is not just necessarily government per government. We can talk about conglomerates. We're talking about conglomerates here. The Apple of the world, the Microsoft of the world, the IBM of the world, the all these conglomerates. That's what we are talking about, because when some people hear about bilateral agreement, they only think about governments, international governments or foreign government coming in to take over the country. No. We are talking about conglomerates. That is what he did. And if you go to Rwanda today, they are factories. I can't remember the last one that I saw. There's a telephone company that has just established its presence in Africa and have a site. He is a strategician. This is a guy that has strategized so much that countries prefer to deal with him directly than even to go through the African Union. Because as we are talking, the African Free Trade Agreement is a free trade that Africans work together as a whole group in order to foster development. But because of his strategy, countries have prepared to deal with him directly, and it is bringing the necessary development in that country. As we speak, you are not going to find lots of university graduates in Rwanda. We are talking about technicians, high school students, vocational studies, people with very low education driving the industrialization in that country. This is a case study that's on my table. I'm not just talking about theory, it's facts. If you want me to give you statistical figures, I will give it to you, but time will not allow us.
Absolutely,
there are case studies in Africa that we can use to say, if we utilize this model and go into bilateral agreement with these conglomerates, non-governmental organizations, we can make a way in Africa. It must not be Cameroon or Africa countries going on with Russia, because most of the time, when it becomes a country-to-country kind of agreement, it becomes either a military agreement or some sort of a yoke on the country in such a way that they want to take over the resources of the country. But when you are dealing with conglomerate, you sign partnership based on concrete terms without any strings attached. So African countries start looking at that in order to liberalize the economy, and bring the necessary industrialization and the environment that is going to stop these young people from looking elsewhere as if it is only in Canada, it's only in the United States, it's only in Europe that you can make it.
Okay.
Because the enabling environment is not there.
Indeed, it takes the effort of all the stakeholders, the political actors, the private sector, and of course, civil society to see that we actually attain the level of transformation that we need in Africa today. Let me conclude with you. Due to time, we are not going to exhaust everything, but then I think we have set the essentials, Dr. Nick. Yeah, of course, concluding with our topic for discussion, the take-home package. I think we'll come to this topic subsequently for better clarification on key terms.
Yes, I was listening to
Dr.
Elijah, and then he kept mentioning this word environment. I think it's very important.
Indeed,
Let us give it another connotation. Let us call it by its name. It's governance. Okay,
Of course.
governance, leadership, all of that.
Yeah.
So where there is bad governance, there's no industry, and the economy is bad, and things don't just work well. And when you want a good environment, you must have good governance. There must be the people in power must be vision bearers. They must lead the people in the right direction, show them what to do. Like this import substitution now is a war song saying, hey, we must make this happen. You understand what I'm saying? But when you have people in administration at different levels, even in the household, when parents don't understand a lot of the things that they ought to be doing, then things don't work. So it's about the governance structure. And when we keep going back to Rwanda, it's about governance.
Indeed.
And when
The
people are saying
leadership,
yes,
that is intentional.
yes, it's intentional. It's
Yeah.
intentional. And when the leader is intentional like that, even the people working under him, they go in that direction. So I guess that's where we need the fine tuning, governance.
Indeed, governance and the strong political will, of course, that will come as a result of the governance system. I want to thank you, Dr. Elijah ENOAKU, for the insight. Of course, like the program itself, it's global insight. We give perspectives to a greater level to understanding some of the problems affecting the African continent and the global world, and see how the world can work together and of course bring comfort to mankind. I want to appreciate you for your greater analysis, and I hope that we'll still have time in the future to revisit this topic and analyze it greater to create that impact that we need out there. It's for the betterment of Africa.
Thank you.
It was indeed a pleasure, and thanking you, Dr. Nick NGWANYAM, for also gracing this platform. When we get together, we share ideas, and at the end, we reach a compromise, and that compromise, which is positive, is what will drive Africa forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. And when President Paul Biya talks of import substitution,
Yeah.
you could equally well say our emergence in 2035. That's what it's all about. That emergence, we need industry, be it import substitution or emergence or stopping violence or stopping this exodus and so on. It boils down to industry, industrialization. Train your children well, transfer your raw materials into finished goods, and then sell the finished goods so that you can earn more money. And as you are transforming the raw materials in your environment, because you've got the technology and the industries, that's how you are retaining jobs. That's how you are putting money in the pockets of your children. That is the key.
Indeed, returning jobs, making people economically viable. We're going to close with this. It's often said that when people are economically viable, there won't be time for terrorism or unnecessary chaos. And of course, you cited the leadership of Cameroon emergence. It starts now. It boils down to Africa's Agenda 2063. It's not in 2063 that we're going to start talking about it. it's a gradual process, and of course, countries in Africa have started in that perspective to see that we build a strong economic power that Africa can also have a say in every aspect. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for always trusting the Pan African television. It is for you, Media Africa, another view of the world where we bring forth constructive analysis towards transforming the beautiful black continent, Africa. Bye bye, and see you some other time.